There is a barn standing in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, that was built in 1847. Every nail in that barn is original. The hinges on the doors are original. The iron hardware holding the timber frame together is original. 177 years of Pennsylvania weather, humid summers, freezing winters, spring rains, summer thunderstorms, and not a single piece of metal in that structure has rusted through. Not one. The farmer who owns that barn does not think this is remarkable. He will tell you, matter-of-factly, that his grandfather taught his father, and his father taught him a treatment for metal that costs about $2 in materials and takes 20 minutes to apply. And he will tell you that everyone in his community does the same thing, has always done the same thing, and that the idea of buying new hardware every few years because the old stuff rusted out is genuinely foreign to him. It is not how things work on an Amish farm. Metal, properly treated, lasts forever, and the treatment is so simple that the only remarkable thing about it is that the rest of the world stopped using it. Here is what makes this worth your full attention. The global cost of corrosion, rust, oxidation, metal degradation has been calculated by the National Association of Corrosion Engineers at approximately $2.5 trillion per year worldwide. That number includes infrastructure, industrial equipment, vehicles, pipelines, and buildings. It includes the nails and hinges and brackets and fasteners that homeowners replace constantly without ever asking why they keep failing. It includes the farm equipment that rusts out in a decade, the fence posts that corrode at the soil line, the tools that pit and weaken in a single wet season. $2.5 trillion every year going directly into the entropy of metal. And sitting quietly in the middle of all of that waste is a community of people who have not had a meaningful corrosion problem on their farms in 200 years. The contrast is not subtle. It is staggering. And the explanation is not a trade secret. It is a $2 dip that anybody can make in their kitchen. Let us start with the actual chemistry of rust, because understanding what rust is makes the Amish solution immediately obvious in a way that it would not be otherwise. Rust is iron oxide, the product of a chemical reaction between iron, oxygen, and water. When iron is exposed to moisture in the presence of oxygen, electrons move from the iron to the oxygen at the surface. An iron oxide forms. That oxide layer is porous and flaky, which means it does not protect the underlying metal the way some other oxides do. Aluminum oxide, for example, forms a tight, adherent layer on aluminum's surface that actually prevents further oxidation, which is why bare aluminum does not corrode the way bare iron does. Iron oxide does the opposite. It forms a loose, expansive layer that lifts away from the surface, exposes fresh metal underneath, and allows the corrosion process to continue indefinitely until the metal is consumed entirely. The solution to rust is therefore either to prevent the iron from contacting oxygen and moisture, or to promote the formation of a different, more protective type of oxide layer on the surface. The Amish do both simultaneously with one treatment. The foundation of the Amish metal preservation system is linseed oil, specifically raw linseed oil, pressed from flax seeds, which the Amish have grown and processed on their own farms for generations. Linseed oil is a drying oil, which means it does not simply sit on a surface and remain liquid the way mineral oil or petroleum oil would. When exposed to oxygen, linseed oil undergoes a polymerization reaction. The individual oil molecules cross-link with each other, forming long polymer chains that create a solid, flexible, oxygen-impermeable film over whatever surface they were applied to. This film is not a coating in the way that paint is a coating. It does not sit on top of the metal as a separate layer that can be chipped, cracked, or peeled. It penetrates into the surface pores of the metal, polymerizes inside them, and creates a flexible matrix that is physically bonded to the metal at the microscopic level. It flexes with the metal as temperatures change. It does not crack when the metal is struck. It does not lift when moisture gets behind it, because moisture cannot get behind it. The oil has already occupied the space where moisture would go. The basic Amish preparation is raw linseed oil, a Benti, not boiled linseed oil, which has chemical drying agents added that can make the cured film brittle over time, but raw, cold-pressed linseed oil that has been heated gently by the user to around 150 degrees Fahrenheit to reduce its viscosity and dramatically improve its ability to penetrate the surface. The warmth of the oil does something that cold oil simply cannot. It causes the oil to flow into every surface irregularity, every microscopic pore, every tiny void between the crystalline grain structures of the iron. Cold linseed oil sits on the surface. Warm linseed oil disappears into it. That distinction is the difference between a coating and a treatment. A coating sits on top and can be removed. A treatment becomes part of the material itself. The metal being treated must be clean and dry before the oil is applied. Any rust scale, grease, or surface contamination prevents the oil from making direct contact with the iron, which breaks the penetration bond and leaves vulnerable spots. The Amish clean metal with a wire brush or coarse cloth before treating it, a step that takes 30 seconds but is non-negotiable. The warm oil is then applied in thin coats using a cloth or a soft brush, and the excess is wiped off rather than left pool on the surface. Thick application does not produce better results. It produces a gummy, tacky surface that stays soft and attracts dust. Thin coats that penetrate fully and cure completely produce the hard, flexible, protective film that the system depends on. Each coat is allowed to cure, to fully polymerize before the next is applied. Depending on ambient temperature and humidity, curing between coats takes 12 to 24 hours in warm weather and longer in cold. The result after 3 to 4 coats is a surface that is genuinely impervious to water penetration, flexible enough to move with the metal through thermal expansion and contraction without cracking, and stable enough to provide years of outdoor exposure protection without requiring reapplication. But the Amish do not stop at plain linseed oil, and this is where the system becomes genuinely sophisticated. To the warmed linseed oil, they add pine tar, a thick, dark, resinous substance produced by the destructive distillation of pine wood, which the Amish historically produced themselves from the pine stumps left after land clearing, and which is today available from farm supply stores for roughly $2 per application volume. Pine tar has been used as a preservative and waterproofing agent for thousands of years. It was the primary wood and metal preservative used in Scandinavian countries for centuries, applied to boat hulls, fence posts, iron fittings, and timber structures in conditions far harsher and wetter than anything most American farms experience. The Vikings preserved their longships with pine tar. The British Royal Navy maintained its rigging, deck hardware and wooden hulls. with pine tar continuously from the 16th century onward. This is not a folk remedy with an uncertain track record. This is a preservative system with a millennia-long performance history. When pine tar is combined with linseed oil in the right proportions, traditionally somewhere between 1 part pine tar to 3 parts linseed oil. Though some Amish craftsmen adjust this ratio based on the specific application, the ambient temperature and the type of metal being treated, something happens that is genuinely more than the sum of the individual parts. The chemistry of the two substances is complementary in ways that took modern materials scientists decades to understand, but that generations of practical users figured out empirically simply by observing what worked. The pine tar contributes antimicrobial properties that prevent the growth of the bacteria and fungi that colonize moist metal surfaces and produce acidic metabolic byproducts that dramatically accelerate corrosion. This biological dimension of metal degradation is almost never discussed in conventional rust prevention conversation, but in outdoor farm environments where metal is constantly in contact with soil, organic matter, animal waste, and vegetation, microbial corrosion is a significant factor. Pine tar, which contains phenolic compounds that are toxic to microorganisms, addresses this factor directly. It also adds a degree of surface tackiness to the cured film that helps it resist mechanical abrasion from contact with wood, rope, soil, and the general physical punishment that farm hardware endures. Its deep, dark colour means the treated surface absorbs solar radiation efficiently, which keeps the metal warmer and drier in outdoor conditions. Elevated surface temperature drives off condensation and surface moisture more quickly after rain, dew, or fog, reducing the total time the metal spends in the wet condition where corrosion is most active. And chemically, the pine resin contributes its own resinous polymer molecules to the cross-linked matrix of the curing linseed oil, participating in the polymerization reaction and producing a cured film that is harder, more dimensionally stable, more abrasion resistant, and more chemically inert than linseed oil alone could achieve. The Amish apply this mixture to every piece of metal on the farm that matters, and nails before they are driven, hinges before they are mounted, hook and eye fasteners, barrel hoops, plough components, gate hardware, wagon wheel iron and tool heads. The application method for something like nails is exactly what the title of this video describes. A dip. You take a container of the warmed linseed pine tar mixture, you dip the nails, you let the excess drip off, and you allow them to cure before use. The entire process for a pound of nails takes 5 minutes and costs fractions of a penny per nail. Those nails, once driven into a structure, do not rust. Not in 5 years, not in 50. Not in 177 years, as that Lancaster County barn makes perfectly clear. There is a third ingredient that some Amish communities add to the mixture for applications involving metal that will be in direct soil contact. Fence post hardware, buried gate hinges, foundation anchor bolts, drainage grates, and any other iron or steel component that will live permanently below grade. And that ingredient is beeswax. Beeswax is a completely natural product that the Amish produce from their own hives as a standard byproduct of honey production. No Amish farm with beehives lacks access to beeswax, which means this upgrade costs them nothing additional. Melted beeswax, added in small quantities, typically 10 to 15% by volume, to the warm linseed pine tar mixture produces a compound that behaves differently from the 2-ingredient version in ways that matter specifically for soil contact applications. The beeswax raises the melting point of the cured film, which matters in soil because underground temperatures can reach levels in summer that would soften a pure, oil-based coating and allow it to be displaced by soil pressure. The wax component keeps the film solid and adherent under these conditions. It increases the film's resistance to leaching. The slow dissolution of the coating components into the surrounding wet soil that would eventually strip a less stable treatment from buried metal. It adds a hydrophobic lubricity to the surface that causes water molecules to bead and roll away, rather than spread across and adhere to the metal, which is the first step in the corrosion chain. And it further closes the microscopic surface pores in the cured film, reducing oxygen permeability to near zero and creating what is essentially a physical seal between the iron and the aggressive, acidic, bacteria-rich environment of the soil. Metal treated with the full 3-component linseed oil, pine tar, and beeswax preparation and buried in the soil can survive decades of direct ground contact without significant corrosion. An outcome that would be completely impossible for untreated iron, which begins pitting within a single wet season in most agricultural soil conditions. What is remarkable about this system is not any single ingredient. Each of the components, linseed oil, pine tar, beeswax, has been known and available for centuries. None of them is exotic or expensive. What is remarkable is the combination, the application method, and most of all, the discipline of application. The Amish treat metal before it is installed, not after it begins to fail. This sounds obvious, but represents a complete reversal of how most people in the modern world interact with metal maintenance. The modern approach is reactive. Buy the metal, install it, wait for it to rust, replace it, or at best, apply a spray can of commercial rust inhibitor after installation, which sits on the surface, cannot penetrate the pores the way a heated oil dip can, and begins to fail within a season or two. The Amish approach is preventive. Metal is never installed untreated, ever. The treatment happens first, always as a matter of unquestioned practice, the same way you would never drive a nail without a hammer. The treatment is not an extra step. It is part of the process of working with metal. This principle of preventive treatment extends to every piece of metal on an Amish farm. Not just new installations, tools are oiled after every use before they are stored. Every single time. A scythe blade is wiped with a linseed oiled rag at the end of every working day, before it is hung on its peg. Saw blades receive a thin coat of the linseed pine tar mixture before winter storage, every year, without exception. Ploughshares are treated before the growing season begins and inspected and retreated after the fall work is done. Axes are wiped after splitting. Chisels are oiled after sharpening. The head of every hammer in the shop gets a periodic treatment because even hammer faces, struck against nails all day, are susceptible to surface rust in humid conditions that makes them slip on nail heads rather than driving them cleanly. The maintenance is built into the rhythm of the work so deeply that it requires no conscious decision-making. It is as automatic as hanging a tool on its designated hook rather than leaving it on the floor, because it happens as part of the daily process of finishing work and putting things away properly. it never accumulates into a large job or a crisis. A 30-second wipe of an oiled cloth on a saw blade at the end of the day takes less time than walking to the hardware store to buy a replacement blade next season. Compounded across a working lifetime and across the lifetimes of multiple generations using the same tools, that 30-second daily investment produces tools that are still sharp, still balanced, still fully functional after 3 generations of hard daily use. The oldest Amish farms have hand tools in daily service that predate the American Civil War, not as museum pieces, as working tools. That is the direct measurable result of the maintenance philosophy applied consistently across 2 centuries. And here is the economic reality underneath all of this that I want to make absolutely clear, because it connects to something much larger than just rust prevention. The average American homeowner replaces outdoor hardware, hinges, latches, nails, fasteners, brackets, on a rolling basis throughout their home ownership. The average farmer replaces a meaningful percentage of their metal equipment components every 5 to 10 years due to corrosion. A 2019 study by NACE International found that corrosion-related maintenance and replacement costs for the average American farm run into the thousands of dollars annually when all metal components, tools, buildings, fencing, equipment fittings are tallied together. The Amish equivalent of that cost is essentially zero for the building and hand tool categories, because their metal does not fail on that timescale. It does not fail at all. That difference, compounded across decades of farm operation, represents an enormous financial advantage, one that requires no advanced technology, no specialized knowledge beyond what gets passed down in the community, and no ongoing expenditure beyond $2 of pine tar and a bottle of linseed oil. There is also a dimension of this system that matters beyond the farm, beyond the money, and beyond the impressive longevity of Lancaster County barn nails. It matters because we are living in a period of significant material uncertainty, where supply chains for manufactured metal goods are increasingly fragile, where the cost of replacement hardware has risen substantially in recent years, and where the ability to maintain and extend the life of what you already own is becoming an increasingly valuable skill rather than an obsolete one. The Amish preservation system is not a historical curiosity. It is a transferable, practical toolkit for anyone who owns metal and wants it to last. You do not need a farm. You do not need to be Amish. You need raw linseed oil, which costs around $15 for a quart. You need pine tar, which costs around $8 for a pint. You need a heat source to warm the mixture, and you need the discipline to apply it before problems develop, rather than after they arrive. That is the whole system. $2 in materials per application, 20 minutes of time, and a philosophy of preventive care that the Amish have practiced so consistently for so long that they have genuinely forgotten what a rusted nail looks like. If this changed the way you think about the metal on your own property, do yourself a favor and hit the like button so more people find this video. Subscribe so you do not miss what comes next in this series, and share it with anyone who is tired of replacing things that should last a lifetime, because on an Amish farm, they do.